Eli had always believed that space was silent, but as his boots touched the frozen stone of the alien world, he realized silence could feel loud. The wind moved across the open plains like a soft whisper, carrying light dust that shimmered in the glow of three pale moons. The sky above was deep blue, almost purple, and filled with slow-moving clouds that reflected the gentle light of the city in the distance. He stood still for a moment, taking it all in. This was his first mission beyond the familiar paths of human exploration. The goal was simple: observe, learn, and show kindness. The planet's people had sent a peaceful message to Earth, asking for contact. Eli had been chosen not because he was a great soldier or a famous scientist, but because he was known for being calm, patient, and good with people. The city ahead of him rose like a dream made of crystalline stone. Tall towers curved toward the sky, glowing softly from inside. Bridges floated between buildings, supported by light-based technology that hummed gently in the air. The streets were wide and clean, and the ground seemed warm beneath the cold wind, as if the city itself was alive. Alien figures moved through the open spaces, their tall forms wrapped in long, flowing robes. Their skin reflected light like polished glass, showing soft shades of blue and silver. Their eyes were large and bright, filled with quiet intelligence. When they noticed Eli, they stopped and watched him with careful interest. There was no fear in their faces, only curiosity. Eli lifted a hand in a slow, friendly wave, just as he had been taught. A few of them copied the gesture, their long fingers moving with gentle grace. He smiled under his helmet, feeling a small sense of relief. This world did not feel hostile. It felt waiting. A group of guards approached, their steps slow and measured. They carried long staffs that glowed at the tips, but their posture was not threatening. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a calm, musical voice. Eli's translator device hummed softly in his ear. "Welcome, traveler from the distant star. You walk under the sight of our queen. You are invited to the outer court." Eli nodded and followed them. His heart beat faster as they moved through the wide streets. The buildings grew taller, and the light grew brighter. The air smelled clean, like cold rain and fresh stone. He could feel the hum of energy beneath the ground, a steady pulse that reminded him of a heartbeat. They reached a large open space at the center of the city. It was a grand courtyard surrounded by curved walls and tall pillars that glowed with soft light. At the far end stood a raised platform, and upon it stood the queen. She was taller than the others, her presence calm and powerful. Her robe flowed like liquid light, shifting in color as she moved. A crown made of thin, glowing arcs floated above her head, not touching her hair but circling it like a quiet orbit. Her eyes were a deep, steady blue, and when they met Eli's, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, like standing near a fire on a cold night. The wind grew stronger, cutting through the open court. Eli felt the chill even through his suit. He noticed the queen's robe moving sharply in the wind, and for the first time he saw something like discomfort in her posture. Her people seemed used to the cold, but this storm was stronger than usual. Without thinking, Eli took a step forward. He reached up and unzipped the outer layer of his jacket. It was thick, designed to keep him warm in space and on cold worlds. He walked slowly toward the queen, careful not to startle anyone. The guards tensed, their staffs glowing brighter, but the queen lifted a hand, and they stopped. Eli stood in front of her, feeling very small under her gaze. He held out the jacket, his voice quiet and respectful. "It's cold," he said simply. "This might help." The queen looked at the jacket, then at Eli. Her eyes widened just a little. The wind carried the fabric, making it flutter like a living thing. Slowly, she reached out and took it. When she placed it around her shoulders, the court fell completely silent. The guards froze. The people in the courtyard stopped moving. Even the wind seemed to pause. Eli felt a sudden heavy feeling in his stomach. He looked around, confused. He hadn't meant to do anything special. He just wanted to help. The queen pulled the jacket close around herself. The warmth from the human-made fabric spread through the glowing material of her robe, and her eyes softened. She took a slow breath, then turned to her people. "The bond is accepted," she said, her voice clear and steady. A low sound moved through the crowd, like a wave. Some looked shocked, some looked curious, some looked worried. Eli's translator struggled for a moment. Then the words reached his ears. "Bond accepted." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean—" The queen turned back to him. There was no anger in her face, only calm and something like gentle amusement. "Your intent was kindness," she said. "Our laws listen to intent." The guard stepped forward, not to grab him, but to guide him. Eli felt his heart race as they led him away from the open court and into the inner halls of the palace. The inside of the palace was even more beautiful than the city. The walls glowed with patterns of light that moved slowly, like living art. The floor was smooth and warm, and the air felt peaceful. Eli was led to a large room with a curved window that looked out over the city and the plains beyond. He sat on a soft floating seat that adjusted to his shape. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to understand what had just happened. A short time later, the queen entered the room. She moved alone this time, without guards. The jacket was still around her shoulders, looking strangely human against her glowing robe. "You are not afraid," she said, more like a question than a statement. "I am," Eli admitted, "but I don't think you want to hurt me." She studied him for a long moment. "You are correct." She sat across from him, her posture relaxed. "On our world," she began, "to give personal warmth to a ruler is a promise. It means you will stand with them, in cold and in danger, for as long as you live." Ellie's eyes widened. "I didn't know. On my world, it just means you don't want someone to freeze." The queen made a soft sound that might have been laughter. "Then our worlds share something. We both value the same feeling. We simply name it differently." Eli felt some of the tension leave his body. "So, am I in trouble?" She shook her head slowly. "No. You are part of a story now." Over the next hours, Eli was shown the palace, always guided but never forced. He saw rooms where light grew like plants, and halls where history was carved into glowing walls. He learned that the queen's name was Salira, and that her people had ruled in peace for many generations. At the same time, he began to notice small things, whispers that stopped when he entered a room. Guards who watched him more closely than before. Faces in the crowd that showed not curiosity, but concern. That night he stood at the palace window, looking out at the city. The 3 moons hung low in the sky, their light reflecting off the towers and bridges. He thought about Earth, about the small blue planet so far away, and about how a simple act had changed his path completely. Behind him, a quiet voice spoke. "Some will see you as a sign of hope," Salira said. "Others will see you as a risk." Eli turned to face her.
"I never wanted to cause trouble." "I know," she replied.
"That is why you matter." The wind outside grew stronger, and the city lights flickered like stars. Eli pulled his arms closer to himself, not from cold, but from the weight of what lay ahead. He did not know what the bond truly meant. He did not know how long he would stay, or how his own people would react when they learned what had happened. All he knew was that he had given a jacket to someone who needed warmth, and in doing so, he had stepped into a future that was no longer just his own. As the night deepened, Eli and the Queen stood in quiet understanding, looking out at a world that now belonged to both of them in ways neither had planned. The story of a human and an alien queen had only just begun, and somewhere beyond the glowing horizon, unseen forces were already beginning to move. Morning light spread across the palace like a soft blanket. It flowed through the curved windows and painted the glowing walls in gentle shades of gold and blue. Eli woke slowly on the floating bed that adjusted to his weight and shape. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw the strange sky beyond the glass and remembered everything. The jacket, the Queen, the bond. He sat up and ran a hand through his hair, letting out a quiet breath. His chest felt heavy, not with fear, but with the strange feeling of being important in a place he barely understood. A soft sound came from the door, like a gentle chime. It slid open, and a tall alien attendant stepped inside. Her skin shimmered like pale silver, and her eyes were kind but careful. "The Queen invites you to walk the upper paths," she said. Eli nodded and followed her into the wide halls. The palace felt alive in the morning. Light moved across the walls like slow waves. Other aliens passed by, some stopping to look at him. Their expressions were mixed. Some showed interest, some showed quiet concern. A few looked away, as if unsure how to feel about a human walking so freely in the heart of their world. They reached a long bridge made of clear light that floated high above the city. Below them, Eli could see the streets, the towers, and the open plains beyond. The air was cold but fresh, and he took a deep breath, feeling awake in a way he had not felt in a long time. Ciela stood at the center of the bridge, her robe flowing gently in the wind. The human jacket still rested on her shoulders, its dark fabric standing out against the glowing colors of her clothing. When she saw Eli, she turned and gave a small nod. "You slept," she said. "I think I needed it," Eli replied. They began to walk side by side. For a while, neither spoke. The sound of the wind and the soft hum of the city filled the space between them. "You look at our world like you are trying to remember it," Silera said at last. "I am," Eli admitted. "I don't know how long I'll be here. I want to carry it with me, just in case." She considered this. "We believe places carry us, even when we leave them."
Ellie smiled. "Well," he said tidy.
"That sounds like something a human would say." They reached the far end of the bridge, where the palace opened into a wide garden. Plants grew in gentle spirals, glowing softly in colors he had never seen before. Some floated just above the ground, their roots moving like slow threads of light.
"This is where we think," Sayalira said.
"Where we decide." Eli walked carefully, not wanting to disturb anything. "About what? About you." The word landed heavily in the air. Before Eli could respond, voices rose at the edge of the garden. A group of council members approached. Their robes were darker, their movements more firm. The one in front had sharp, narrow eyes and a stiff posture. "Queen Cialara, we request your attention." She turned to face them. "You have it." The council member glanced at Eli. "The human's presence is causing unrest." The bond was formed without guidance, without agreement from the council. Eli felt his hands tighten at his sides. He took a step back, but Ciela lifted her hand. keeping him close. The bond was formed through law and intent, she said calmly. It stands. The council member's eyes flickered. Then we must speak of risk. Humans are unknown. Their kind spreads quickly across the stars. They build, they change, they do not stay still. That is not our way. Eli opened his mouth, then closed it. He did not know how to speak for all of humanity. He barely knew how to speak for himself. Saila turned to him. "Tell them," she said softly. "Tell them why you travel the stars." Eli took a slow breath. "We don't go to change worlds," he said. "We go to understand them. We make mistakes. We learn. We help when we can. Sometimes we fail. But we keep trying." The council members watched him closely. Some looked thoughtful. Others remained cold. The one with narrow eyes stepped back. "We will observe," he said. "But know this, human. If your presence brings harm, we will act." They turned and left, their robes flowing like dark water behind them. Eli let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. "I don't think they like me very much." Saila looked at him. "They do not like what they cannot control." Over the next few days, Eli was shown more of the world. He walked through markets where alien merchants sold glowing fruits and tools made of light and stone. He watched children play games that used floating shapes instead of balls. He spoke with engineers who showed him how their bridges and towers were held up by quiet streams of energy. Everywhere he went, people watched. Some greeted him with gentle curiosity. Others kept their distance. The jacket on Sailira's shoulders had become a symbol. Some saw it as a sign of unity. Others saw it as a warning. At night, Eli often stood at the palace window, looking up at the moons. He recorded messages for Earth, careful with his words. "This world is peaceful," he said in one message. "But change is like a shadow here. They see it, even when it hasn't arrived yet." One evening, a guard approached him quietly while he walked through a quiet hall. "You should be careful," the guard said. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Not all eyes watch with good intent." Eli stopped. "What do you mean?" The guard hesitated, then shook his head. "Just do not walk alone in the lower halls." Eli thanked him and continued on, his mind racing. He began to notice more signs, doors that closed a little too quickly, conversations that ended when he entered a room. Saila noticed too. "They fear what they cannot shape," she said one night as they stood in the garden. "And some believe you will shape this world simply by being here." "I don't want to change anything," Eli said. "I just want to be myself." She looked at him. "Sometimes that is enough to change everything." The tension reached a breaking point during a gathering in the Great Hall. Leaders from different regions of the planet had come to speak with the Queen. The hall was filled with light and sound, voices blending in a soft, steady rhythm. Eli stood near Saila, feeling out of place but determined to stay calm. A council member stepped forward, his voice carrying through the hall. "We request a trial of intent. Let the human show his worth through action, not words." A quiet murmur spread through the crowd. Saila's eyes narrowed slightly. "And what action do you propose?" "There is a station at the edge of our world," the council member said. "It monitors the energy storms beyond our sky. It is gone silent. Our people do not go there. It is too unstable. Let the human go. Let him bring back what he finds." Eli felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air. Saila stepped forward. "This is not a test. This is a risk. The council member bowed. So is allowing him to stay. The hall fell silent. Eli took a step forward. I'll go, he said. Sailira turned sharply. You do not have to. I know, Eli replied. But if they need proof, I can give it. The queen studied him, her eyes searching his face. Finally, she nodded slowly. Then you will not go alone. A small craft was brought to the palace platform, its surface smooth and glowing. 2 guards and an engineer joined Eli for the journey. As the craft lifted into the sky, Eli looked back at the city, at the towers and bridges and the small figure of Sailira standing on the platform. He raised a hand. She raised hers in return. The flight was rough. The sky darkened as they moved away from the calm center of the world. Clouds twisted and flashed with distant light. The craft shook as they passed through waves of energy. They reached the station, a tall, thin structure standing alone on a wide plain of dark stone. Its lights were dim, flickering like a dying star. Inside, the air was cold and still. The engineer moved quickly, checking systems and panels. Eli followed, his heart beating fast. They found the problem in the core. A power flow had shifted, blocking the station's main systems. The fix was simple but dangerous. Someone had to reach into a narrow space where the energy moved fast and wild. Eli did not hesitate. He slid his arm into the space, feeling heat and vibration through his suit. He adjusted the flow with careful movements, guided by the engineer's voice. For a moment, the energy surged, and the lights went out completely. Then, slowly, the station came back to life. Lights glowed. Systems hummed. The guards let out soft sounds of relief. On the flight back, Eli leaned back in his seat, exhausted but calm. When they returned, the city welcomed them with light and sound. The council members watched as Eli stepped off the craft, tired but standing tall. Saela walked to him, her expression open and proud. You returned, she said. I said I would, Eli replied. That night, as the moons rose again, the city felt different. The whispers were softer. The looks were warmer. But in the shadows of the palace, a few figures still watched, still planned, still feared what the future might bring. And Eli, standing beside the queen, could feel that this world and his own were moving closer together, step by step, into a future that would test them both in ways neither could yet see. The sky over the city changed color before anyone felt the danger. What had been a calm blue with soft clouds slowly turned darker, like ink spreading through water. The light from the 3 moons faded behind thick waves of shadow, and the gentle hum of the city grew uneven, like a heartbeat that had lost its rhythm. Eli was walking through the upper halls when the first low sound rolled across the air. It was not thunder, but something deeper, something that seemed to come from the sky itself. He stopped and placed a hand against the glowing wall. He could feel a faint vibration moving through the stone and light. Guards began to move quickly through the halls, their calm steps turning sharp and fast. Doors closed along the outer paths. Soft warning lights appeared along the bridges, glowing in slow pulses. Saela met Eli near the central platform. Her robe shimmered with brighter colors than usual, a sign of focus and alertness among her people. The storm is coming early, she said. Stronger than we expected. Eli looked up through the wide opening above the platform. The clouds twisted and rolled like giant waves in a dark sea. Thin lines of light flashed within them, not like lightning, but like cracks in the sky. What kind of storm is it? Eli asked. Energy, Saela replied. It moves through our world every few cycles. Our city is built to guide it around us, to let it pass without harm. But this one feels heavy. A loud signal echoed through the city, deep and slow. It was the call for preparation. Aliens moved in steady lines across the bridges, guiding children and elders into the inner halls. Floating platforms lowered from the towers, carrying supplies and tools. The city became a living machine, every part moving with quiet purpose. Eli watched, impressed. "You've done this before?" "Yes," Sailira said, "but never with the sky this dark." The first wave of energy hit like a strong wind. The air itself seemed to bend. The tall towers swayed, their light flickering. Some of the floating bridges dipped lower, their soft hum turning sharp. An engineer ran toward the platform, his voice tight. "The outer guides are failing. The flow is too strong. We can't hold it all." Silea closed her eyes for a brief moment. "Then we protect who we can." Eli stepped forward. "Show me the guides." They moved quickly to the control hall, a wide space filled with floating panels and glowing lines that showed the city from above. Streams of light moved around the towers, showing where the energy was being pushed away. Several of those streams were breaking apart. "Our system is built on balance," the engineer explained. "We guide, not fight. But this storm is not balancing. It is pushing." Eli studied the panels. The patterns reminded him of something he had seen back on Earth. River systems during floods, calm water that suddenly turned wild. "What if you don't guide it?" Eli said. "What if you break it up instead?" The engineer looked confused. "Break it up?" "Humans do this with storms," Eli explained. "We can't stop them, but we can weaken them. Change how they move, split them into smaller parts." Saila looked at the glowing map. "We have never tried that." Eli nodded. "Neither had we once." The floor shook. A tower in the distance dimmed, then went dark. "There's no time," Eli said. "Let me help." The engineer hesitated, then quickly adjusted the panels to give Eli control of one of the outer guide systems. Eli's hands moved fast, turning and shifting the streams of light. Instead of pushing the energy away in smooth lines, he began to scatter it, breaking the flow into smaller paths. At first, nothing happened. Then the lights on the map changed. The thick, heavy streams began to thin. The pressure on the towers eased slightly. "It's working," the engineer said, surprise in his voice. But the storm was not finished. A loud crack echoed through the air. One of the outer platforms broke free from its guide and drifted dangerously toward a tower filled with people. Eli did not think. He ran. He reached a small transport craft parked near the hall and jumped inside. The controls were unfamiliar, but simple. He lifted the craft into the air, feeling the wind and energy push against it. The platform was moving fast now, pulled by the storm. Eli guided the craft alongside it, his heart pounding in his chest. He opened the side hatch and used the craft's energy line to latch onto the platform. The line tightened. The craft shook. "Come on," Eli whispered. Slowly, painfully, he pulled the platform away from the tower and guided it toward a safe landing zone. The moment it touched down, Eli felt the craft lose power. It dropped hard onto the stone below. He hit his head against the side panel, stars flashing in his vision. For a few seconds, everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, Sailor was there, kneeling beside him. Her glowing eyes were wide with worry. "Eli," she said softly, "stay with me." "I'm here," he replied, his voice weak but steady. Guards lifted him carefully and carried him into the inner halls. The storm still raged outside, but the city was holding. Inside a quiet room, an alien healer worked with gentle light, scanning Eli's body. The pain faded, replaced by a warm, calming feeling. "You should have stayed in the hall," Scifi said, standing nearby. Eli managed a small smile. "Someone had to move it." The healer stepped back. "He will recover. Humans are strong in different ways." Scifi watched Eli closely. "You risked your life for people you barely know." Eli shrugged slightly. "That's kind of our thing." Outside, the storm began to weaken. The dark clouds slowly broke apart, letting soft moonlight return to the city. The hum of the towers grew steady again. The energy streams on the panels smoothed into gentle lines. By the time Eli was able to stand, the worst had passed. The city gathered in the great hall. Light filled the space, brighter than before. Faces that had once shown doubt now showed something else: respect. The narrow-eyed council member stepped forward. His posture was less stiff, his voice less sharp. "The human acted when our systems failed," he said. "He did not follow our ways. He followed his own. And it saved lives." A soft sound of agreement moved through the crowd. Scifi placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "Today you did more than stand with us.
You stood for us."
Eli felt heat rise in his face. "I just did what I could." "That is what makes it matter," she replied. That night, the city celebrated quietly. Lights moved in gentle patterns across the towers. Music filled the air, slow and peaceful. Eli walked among the people, no longer watched with suspicion, but with welcome. Children ran past him, laughing. An elder stopped to touch the sleeve of his jacket, still worn by the queen, and gave a small nod of thanks. Eli found Scifi standing at the edge of the upper bridge, looking out at the calm sky.
"It's beautiful again," he said. "Yes," she replied.
"And different, so are we," Eli said. She turned to him. "Our world has always believed in calm, in stillness, in guiding instead of changing. You showed us that sometimes. To protect what you love, you must be willing to move, to act, to risk. Ellie looked out at the stars, and you showed me that not every problem needs to be pushed. Sometimes it needs to be understood." They stood in silence for a while, the space between them comfortable and warm. Far away, beyond the reach of the moons, something else moved through the dark. A faint signal, weak but growing, passed through the empty space between stars. It was not from Earth. It was not from Scifi's world. It was from somewhere else. Deep in the palace, a small panel flickered to life. A guard noticed it and frowned, calling for an engineer. The message was short, unclear, but one word stood out in the human translator: approaching. Eli did not know it yet, but the storm he had faced was only the beginning. The future waiting beyond the sky would test not just his courage, but the bond between two worlds that had just learned how strong they could be together. The city woke under a sky that felt too quiet. After the storm, people had expected peace to return. The towers still glowed. The bridges still floated. The garden still breathed soft light into the morning air. But there was a strange stillness in the wind, like the world itself was holding its breath. Eli stood on the upper bridge, watching the stars fade as the sun rose. He felt it too. The calm did not feel safe. It felt like the pause before something new. Behind him, Scifi approached. The jacket still rested on her shoulders, worn now not just as a symbol, but as something familiar and comforting. "The signal grew stronger during the night," she said. Eli turned. "From where?" "Beyond our outer watch," she replied. "Far from any path we know." They walked together toward the control hall. Engineers and guards moved quickly, their voices low but urgent. Floating panels showed a dark shape moving slowly through space, its outline unclear, its energy reading unfamiliar. "It does not speak," an engineer said. "It only moves closer." The council gathered, their faces serious. The narrow-eyed member who had once doubted Eli stepped forward. "Our world is not built for conflict," he said. "We guide. We balance. We do not strike." Eli studied the moving shape on the panel. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "you don't need to strike. You need to stand where you can't be ignored." Silira looked at him. "What would you do?" Eli took a breath. "I would go out to meet it." The hall fell silent. Silira's eyes widened.
You would leave the safety of our world? I would take a small craft, Eli said. I'd send a message.
"Not in words, in presence. I'd show them we're here, together." The council murmured. Some looked uneasy. Some looked thoughtful. Silira stepped forward. "If he goes, he does not go as one. He goes as a bond." Preparations began at once. A small, fast craft was moved to the outer platform. It was built for speed, not defense. Simple, light, honest in its purpose. Eli suited up, his hands steady but his heart fast. Saela walked with him to the platform. The sky above them glowed with the first light of day. "You don't have to do this," she said. Eli smiled gently. "I know. That's why I am." She placed a hand over the jacket, over her chest. "Then carry us with you." The craft lifted into the air and shot toward the stars. Space opened around Eli, wide and endless. The dark shape grew larger on his screen. It was not a ship like any he had seen. It moved like a shadow with light inside it, slow and heavy like a drifting mountain. He opened a wide signal channel. He did not send words. He sent light, a simple pattern, two worlds, side by side. A human hand and an alien hand reaching toward each other. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the dark shape stopped. Light moved across its surface, like a slow wave. A new pattern appeared on Eli's screen. Not a language, a shape, a question. Eli answered with another pattern, not of power, not of warning, but of home. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the dark shape turned. Slowly it moved away, fading back into the deep space beyond the stars. Eli let out a long breath he did not realize he was holding. The return to the city felt different. The sky seemed brighter. The towers glowed warmer. When Eli's craft touched down, the platform was full of people. Silira stepped forward. The council stood behind her. Guards, engineers, children, elders. Eli removed his helmet. Silira spoke, her voice carrying across the open space. "Today we stood as one, not through strength, not through fear, but through presence." The narrow-eyed council member bowed his head. "The bond did not weaken us," he said. "It showed us who we could become." Eli felt something warm rise in his chest, not pride, belonging. That night the city held a gathering under the stars. Lights flowed across the bridges like rivers of gold. Music moved through the air, slow and gentle. Eli stood beside Silira at the edge of the upper path. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "we open our world." "To humans?" Eli asked. To everyone, she replied, starting with yours. Eli looked up at the sky, thinking of Earth, of the small blue world that had sent him out with nothing but a suit, a jacket, and a hope for kindness. He took a slow breath. I think they'll be ready. Cyelera turned to him. And you? Eli smiled. I already am. The wind moved softly around them. The stars shone bright and steady. Two worlds, once distant and unsure, now stood connected by a simple act, a shared risk, and a bond formed in the cold. Far beyond the city, far beyond the moons, the universe continued to move. But for this moment, under this sky, Eli and Saela stood together, not as human and alien, not as traveler and queen, but as partners in a future that had just begun.